So I don't think it's unrealistic to say that most of us have really big questions about who we are and what we believe, the things that bring meaning to our life that may lay outside of tradition. Well, psychotherapist and spiritual guide Faith Freed joined me earlier to share some thoughts that can help us all look at spirituality in different ways. Really interesting. Listen to this. Faith, many of our viewers have experienced loneliness throughout their lives, including yours truly, for real. I want to ask, what are some ways to address that in a really healthy way?
Well, I would say first be very clear that this is loneliness and not just being alone. Remember that being alone is absolutely okay. In fact, it's healthy. And sometimes there's a stigma to spending time alone, especially around the holidays.
Yeah.
And so just check in, is it a problem? And will being with other people make you feel better?
Yeah.
I mean, forget about the ideas and the expectations and really check in with yourself. Are you going to feel better in the company of other people? Is that really what's going on? If that is the case, I suggest reaching out, because sometimes we can sort of wallow in that feeling of being isolated without realizing that there's something we can do about it. And so if you kind of take the responsibility and your power back and say, all right, look, somebody else has nothing going on. I'm going to reach out to 10 people that I wouldn't mind spending time with. And there's no shame in that. Do it. And something probably will arise. And then if you realize, oh, you know what, I'm just trying to distract myself from something else. Like, let's say if you're lonely because you had a breakup or because you lost a loved one, then you might be looking more at grief or something like that. And it might be that you need some healing, and that solo time could be used to help soothe your soul.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I'm going through too. So I appreciate that. Now, we're all on these emotional, spiritual paths, right? Journeys, if you will. When do you know it's time for you to switch paths, that you are on the wrong path or you need to look at other paths?
That feels like an ongoing journey. And so it's not that you have to question, should I go from this path to another path, but maybe just open your mind and do some exploration. You can check in, what is your current spiritual practice if you have one? What are your beliefs? Because that's a good starting point. A lot of people might just adopt kind of a tradition that is in the family, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are okay with that, then you can always go deeper. And if you feel like there's a part of you that still needs to get awakened spiritually, then it's really interesting to learn about other schools of thought and other traditions, and even sample some rituals and see what resonates with you. I don't think there's a perfect time where you're gonna suddenly, be hit by lightning and think, oh gosh, it's time for a new spiritual path. I mean, that could happen, but more it's stay curious, stay open, and engage in the conversation ongoing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's sort of how I found Buddhism, which is like, I was raised Jewish, but it really helped me to find that angle and just to get through some of the anxiety, which is really helpful. Now, I really want to ask you this. This is my favorite question. You call yourself a divine disco ball. Will you explain that visual for us and our listeners?
Well, yes, I don't call myself a divine disco ball, but I do use the divine disco ball as my symbol of the sacred. So this came about because I wanted to capture 4 aspects of my spiritual life with something that was a nod to the party of life and reminded us to celebrate life, that it to elevate the spirit. And, disco balls are wonderful. They reflect light. They're fun.
Totally.
And all good vibes. And so the system consists of really 4 simple things: soul, spirit, the body, mind, the great creator, or however you conceive of that. I call it infinite source. And then the physical expression of that in nature.
That's so interesting. And that all reflects within the disco ball.
Yes. Well, yes, it's really 4 parts. So that's something that visually you'll see in the book or in iterations of it. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I like to party under that. Okay, what is one thing we can do to empower ourselves to feel, and this is important, more joy, especially right now during the holidays?
Okay, so I would suggest starting where you are.
Mm,
The idea of joy, it feels so exalted that it might feel like it's unattainable. And really, it's just on a spectrum
mm.
that starts with satisfaction, contentment, acceptance, and so if you can start there, and then start to be a little grateful, then you start to get a little happy, and then just be open to the experience of joy. It's a spontaneous feeling that maybe you can't conjure as much as you can just let it happen to you. So, if you wake up and you say, today I'm going to be on the lookout for joy.
Yeah.
And then, you kind of you find it in the small moments, maybe when you least expect it, and you just get a little charge. Follow that and let it and I'll just allow it to grow.
That's amazing. That's so great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Faith. We know you're busy, and we're so excited to DIY spirituality and learn from you as a spiritual guide. And we just appreciate your time. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Thank you, Tori.
Absolutely. Take care. DIY Spirituality is out on February 17th. You can pre-order now online at faithfreed.com.